research strategies. I mean, it's very important, I think, for young people to know that really to read and study, this looks like a trivial concept, but for me, it's very important to use, the databases that nowadays are available. I mean, when I was a student, when I was a PhD student, it was more difficult to find good information. Now you have excellent databases that will allow you to have the state-of-the-art information before you start to do something. So my suggestion to young people is study well before starting a project, because then you can do a more relevant project. You can avoid to repeat, experiments or to experiences of previous researchers, which were not so successful. So books, I have to say, in the past were more difficult to find. Now there are also good databases in which you can find excellent books. Of course, they are more general sometimes, but again, they can be very useful to be more knowledgeable on a certain topic. I have to say the reviews very often are the best way to keep yourself updated on a topic, and then of course also original articles. We know, of course, which are the best databases. Of course, we just have to consider that some of them are not free. So, of course, PubMed is free, but others like Scopus, for instance, Web of Science, etc., are not free. I just want to mention, SciFinder Scholar is also useful because it is basically the chemical abstracts online. So chemical abstracts, as you know, is a very rich database, and SciFinder Scholar actually is a very rich database, also having patents. Sometimes you look for something and then you don't find maybe anything on PubMed, but you find something on Scopus. When you go to SciFinder Scholar, you find even more because you can find also patents. So I think it's very useful to have a good set of databases, which of course can be expensive for a university. So Sapienza spends several million euros, to try to provide to our scholars and students, the best databases. Also, I want to mention Access Medicine. Access Medicine is a platform that is designed and owned by McGraw-Hill, which is a quite famous publisher. And there are very good books of medicine, pharmacology there. So things like Harrison, the Goodman and Gilman, they are free online on this platform. And digital books are better than printed books for two reasons. One reason is that actually the chapters of the books are updated immediately as soon as a chapter is prepared. So they don't have to wait to print the old book. They just publish online the updated chapter. And also you can search online the book for a database. So you want to find something about, I don't know, a monoclonal antibody, rituximab. You put rituximab and then you find this drug very easily in all chapters. Maybe that drug is used in different diseases. And so it's so convenient to look for information online. So I recommend to young people to use digital resources and online books. Also, one challenge that we have is to remember what we read, because this also, when I was a young researcher, this is nowadays really we read hundreds or thousands of papers, and then it's very difficult to remember. So I think each of us should find a way to remember, because then when you write your own article, then you have to quote very precisely the information that that you read. So I mean, I still use a little bit the old-fashioned system of highlighting the concept that I like, and I put post-its everywhere. But any young person can use the different methods as long as you remember. This is the challenge. We have so much information nowadays. The difficult thing is to remember what you read. And then, of course, conferences are very good. I think young people should balance. I mean, too many conferences are not too good, because you need to also focus on your own work. But I mean, this is, I think, is in the hands of the supervisors to try to balance. I mean, the participation of a young person in conferences. Laboratory meetings are very useful. I mean, this when I was a young person, I was not loving so much laboratory meetings every Thursday, but in the end, they are useful. You can share, information with your peers, with your supervisor, etc. And then I recommend to really all young people to use ResearchGate. It's a free platform and very useful to ask reprints. I mean, they still we call them reprints, but nowadays are PDF files. I remember when I was a young researcher, I was writing postcards. I think some of the senior people in the online now will remember these postcards. You know, we were writing and putting a stamp sometimes, or and sending the postcards, and then the publication was coming back after several weeks. And to be very honest, sometimes I even forgot why I requested a certain paper that at that moment appeared so important that after several weeks, maybe you could not even remember why that paper was so important for you. ResearchGate, you can do this in very fast, and people reply quite quickly, so you can get papers that you don't find in databases. You can ask them to authors directly by ResearchGate. I just to double check with the organizers, Professor Shetty, you hear me well? It's the communication okay so far?
Yes, yes, perfect, perfect.
Okay, just stop me if there is any problem with the communication. Just please stop me. Okay. Then another important topic is the risk factor, because of course when you do a PhD, then you say, okay, I want to finish my PhD in a certain number of years, and then you don't want to risk too much, so you do something that in a way is predictable. So of course, if you do something predictable, you are not going to obtain very original results. This is for sure. So again, I think good supervisors, they should balance, the risk in a certain subject in which maybe you can do something more original, but the problem is that you might not obtain good results, and then you might not be able to prepare a good doctoral thesis. But I think it's a good idea to have maybe more than one topic. Try to work on two different lines, and then having one line of research more predictable and the other one more original. So to try to keep, some plan B if something goes wrong, but in the end, to try to also do something more original. So originality is a very important point in research, of course. Impact, we try to have impact, but again, it's not very easy. Interdisciplinarity, this is also like a dream. Before, these are figures from Leonardo da Vinci. As you know, Leonardo da Vinci was a genius. So he was a painter, he was an engineer, he was almost everything, a sculptor. So he did so many interesting things. Nowadays, it's more difficult, to say, to be expert in pharmacology and then at the same time to know philosophy or ethics, etc. So, but I think we should try to be more interdisciplinary, to have a more interdisciplinary knowledge, because then you get again more original ideas, and then universities maybe should adapt the curricula, maybe try to reduce a little bit, the technical information, but give to students ideas. Nowadays, I think technical information can be found easily on the internet, but ideas actually are something always interesting. So human beings, in my opinion, in this century will be more and more key for their actually interdisciplinary approach, and then machines will probably better than us very soon in very specific technical tasks. Then, of course, we have to mention this publish or perish culture. This is something that, of course, we all have a lot of pressure. We have to publish. So sometimes, again, it's not easy to carry on a very original research, very risky research, because at the end of the year, we have a report, to do, and then we have to show that we are publishing, etc. So still, we need, to evaluate our impact factor, our H index. And again, it's not easy, but we have to try to achieve some good results also beyond the publication. Also, patenting. A good university like Pondicherry, I'm sure that you also have a strategy to patent the best results. And here, one point for me is that when a university is engaged in patenting, there are some rules to follow. First of all, the office dealing with patents must be fast and efficient, because if you have a young researcher with a good result, and then he or she goes to the office and then says, I have a good idea that I would like to patent. If this patent will take 1 year to make and to distribute, etc., that researcher will lose 1 year. So, I mean, nobody wants to lose 1 year, I mean, before publishing a paper. If you have something hot in your hands, you risk that somebody else will publish the same result, etc. So, one point is the office should be fast, should be efficient, and then should also be proactive in commercializing the patents. I mean, the patent itself, it's not worthwhile. I mean, unless the university finds a way to contact companies interested in that patent. So that's another point. After you made the patent, then you have to commercialize. You have to contact companies, say, we have this patent which we think that is good. So, and then, you know, to make a profit that would be good for the university and also maybe for the researcher. So these are strategies that if they don't work well, researchers will not even know the office. They will kind of hide their best results because they worry that all this patenting procedure will slow them down. This is the idea. Then another point, of course, to have a very good plan. You know, to plan in advance. You know what you're doing. This is very good. The quality of research, of course, is very good. I will go fast on these concepts. I'm sure that all of you know these concepts. So to have a you know, to take care of the different aspects of a research plan, so accuracy, precision, sensitivity, etc. So all these concepts are different, and then you have to kind of consider all of them in a good research plan. Then, you know, the research process. Of course, you start from a question, and then, you know, you go through the formulation of the problem, the hypothesis, you do the experiments, and then you go in rounds, because every result will actually improve, you know, your starting point. So the research is really, for me, a process that, you know, goes in circles, and you improve and improve every time, you know, what you're doing. So, you know, of course, this is very important, as I said, to know very well the topic. I mean, the subject has to be very good. You know, you have to develop well the research. And then one point for me, for young people, is to combine also, I mean, hard skills with soft skills. I mean, with skills, when you're very young, of course, knowledge is very important. Your capability to do the experiments to achieve a good scientific result. This is key. But the more you become senior, and this is my experience, soft skills become more and more important. I mean, communication, management, problem solving. I mean, you need to interact. Of course, maybe you start your own lab, so you have young people to work with. Everyone is different. Everyone, maybe you say something that you think is nice to a person, maybe he or she will not maybe like it because he's a sensitive person. Or, I mean, the people within the team, maybe they compete with each other. So some competition is good, but if there is too much competition, then people also will become stressed. They don't work well. So, I mean, all these things are so important in an organization, and I'm sure that the senior people here, you know, like Professor Singh, Professor Mato, Professor Shetty, they share with me these ideas that the more you go on your career, the more you need to really be, I mean, your personality will be important, the way you approach your people working with you, your people, I mean, higher in the hierarchy, your collaborators. So all these are very, very important. And then I like this quote from Janssen from Denmark, that, you know, the best way to learn science is to write science. So when you write an article, it's not only that you're trying to publish, you improve even your plan, your research plan, because writing that article, you see how many problems you must solve, and then you get new ideas. You get new ideas for new experiments, etc. So of course there are different kinds of writings. I mean, you can write a simple report, you can write articles, proposals for a grant, thesis, abstracts. You make a presentation, you prepare chapters, etc., etc. So each document is different. So the way you write an article is different from the way you write a chapter for a book or a whole book. So of course, when you write an article, space is very, very limited. So you need to be very clear. So you need to provide the right information, but in a very concise way. So I mean, there are some general rules I have to say in all these documents, but of course, let's say the space in a thesis is much more than in a scientific article. So you have to be very careful with what you are writing. So I will go I mean, a little bit quick on this because I assume that your supervisors, of course, they explain to you this. But there are some common characteristics, simplicity, precision, clarity. I mean, for me, clarity is very important. I read what I write many times, and every time I try to say, yeah, look, this, text can be clarified. Maybe also I think, who is going to read that document? When you write or when you talk, you have to think, who is listening to me, who is actually reading my whatever. So to be always very clear. I mean, try not to use too many acronyms. I don't like acronyms. There are thousands of them. So I mean, an acronym, if it is very relevant for a certain field, of course you can use it. But otherwise, try to spell out, some concept, because it will be easier for people to follow what you're doing. So this is, I mean, just some general rules that I feel we have to keep in mind. Let me quote. There is a very famous French poet called Baudelaire that was a couple of centuries ago. He wrote to a friend, "Dear friend, I'm very sorry that," of course he was writing in French. I'm just translating in my European English that is not perfect, but I hope you will understand me. He said, "Dear friend, I'm sorry that I am writing to you such a long letter. I apologize because I did not have enough time to make it shorter." I mean, I like this concept because this for me is very true. When you write something, to make it very short, it takes more time because you have to think to how to synthesize concepts, how to remove words. So this is something I do all the time. I mean, I write even an email. I write an email, I go back, and then I say, look, that sentence is very long. Maybe I can say the same thing in a shorter way. And then, I mean, the communication is better. So try to be short, to be very clear. This is very appreciated by everyone who will communicate with you. And then, of course, you have the different sections of a manuscript. You know very well. All the sections are very important. Starting from the title, the authors, who is in that paper, etc. The abstract. Again, you have a limited space. You have to be very clear. Introduction. I mean, let me spend a few words about this introduction. Introduction, again, has to be very clear, very built, not too long, and the concepts that actually you introduce in the paper, they should be linked to your methods, to your results, to your discussion. So to be very frank, for instance, in my case, I write the introduction at the end of the work. I mean, of course, I have a lot of ideas in mind, but in a paper, the introduction for me is the last section I write in a paper, because when you are very clear in mind which are the materials and methods, which are the results, which is the discussion that you started in your paper, then you introduce those results saying things related to your results. This is, for me, is key. So your results are like the light, that you imagine. Sometimes I use metaphors. Imagine you are in a black forest. You have so many trees, so the information is so much, so you can get lost in this dark wood. And then, which is the light that will take you to the end of the wood? The light are the results. Through the results that you obtain, you have to explain exactly the state of the art. So what other people studied, which is the knowledge that actually was available before you obtained those results. So this, for me, is very, very key. And then, of course, you can also, conclusions are very important. In many papers, conclusions are not written well. Conclusion, really, you should conclude your work, saying a few sentences, relevant to the whole picture of, the originality, the impact of your research. To really bring the reader to the main points of your article. This is important. Discussion, for instance, I prefer, if possible, always to separate results and discussion. Because results, you can really describe in a very strict, very simple way what you obtain. You look at your data, you describe your data, you try to make nice tables, nice, figures, etc. And then you discuss them based on the knowledge that is available, so based on the results obtained by other scholars, and also you discuss the results internally. What really you saw, which is the relevance of your work, etc. So I think, I read many articles, and not always I'm very happy with the way articles are written. So I think if young people should be trained in the beginning to write well, because if you write well, when you submit a paper, the referees will understand better your paper, so they will value more your paper. So sometimes you have very good results, you don't explain them well, you don't write a good paper, and then the paper gets rejected because people don't understand what you obtain. So clarity and is very, very, very important. So again, try to avoid that, what you're writing can be interpreted in a different way. Sometimes it's good, to read what you wrote to other people. So to say, is that clear? I meant that. Do you also see what I meant? This kind of things. So I will go quickly. So this is, for me, is another rule, to start immediately to write well since the beginning. So because if you have a good draft, then you can improve it and then go to a good document. But if you really have a very bad draft, then it will be more difficult to reach a good level. So consolidate all the information already. To have in mind the journal, I think is useful. Of course you can decide later, but already to have a short list of journals, because each journal has a different focus. So it's to have in mind already a journal. And then, at the beginning you can be quick. Of course, you can just put together the draft, as I said, and then you start editing. And then you have to edit many, many times. Maybe you leave the paper for a while, you take a weekend off, you go somewhere, then you come back on Monday with a fresh mind, and then you can edit and improve again your paper. So again, I will go fast on certain things I already said. The slides will be available. I will send you to your supervisors, to Professor Maggio, Professor Shetty. So I will go quickly here. The title, of course, is very important. You have to choose, because people will look in the databases, for very often for the titles of certain articles. So the title is very, very, very important. I will go fast here. I already mentioned some concept about the introduction. So I like this picture, because you see here, you see this triangle. So in the introduction, you go from general concepts more and more to specific things to motivate. So you have to explain to the reader why that work was relevant. So this is really a good introduction, should actually remind you of this figure, like a triangle going from general concept to more specific concept. And then at the end of the introduction, you say, thus, since one person did that, that data is thus we want to do this. This is very important, the aim of the work. Then, of course, materials and methods has to be very, very, very clear, very well written. Put all the information. Again, results. The preparation of figures and tables is very important. So try to make good figures very clear, good tables. Do not, of course, do figures with the same data of the tables. Try to separate. And it depends. Sometimes tables are better than figures. Sometimes figures are better than tables. So there are no general rules. But again, your light should be clarity. So should be how can I value the data I have? How can I really present them in the best way that people will like what I present? So I already said, results also has to be very clear. Do not repeat the same things that I can read in a table. You don't have to repeat again in the text everything. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Another general rule for me when I write, whatever is not necessary in science is deleterious. If I tell you something that is not very relevant for you in that moment, is not good. I mean, you dilute the impact of your information. So try to remove from your paper anything that you feel this is not really essential. I can make it shorter. I can make it, more clear. And then again, the impact of your paper will improve. I will go fast. Consistency is very important for me. So always follow the same order. I mean, if you decided to talk about, let's say you have a result on model 1, model 2, model 3. Then you have to explain in the methods, first model 1, model 2, model 3. In the results, same order. In the discussion, same order. In the introduction. So this is the consistency. This is so important for me. So never change the order that you decided is the best. So you have like figure 1, figure 2, figure 3, because they are related to model 1, model 2, model 3. And then if you have more results on model 1, then you can do figure 1A, 1B, 1C. When you talk about model 2, you have figure 2. So this is very consistent. People will appreciate, will be very clear for people to read your paper to understand what you obtained. And also don't change names. I mean, sometimes, you have synonyms for certain words. Usually when we speak, I mean, it's more elegant to use synonyms, to use other words with the same meaning, but not in science. I mean, for me, it's better to repeat a certain name, because if you change too many names in a paper, then people will get confused. Short sentences. So as I said, to interpret, all the results, etc. I think I mentioned some of these topics. I will not go into all details. I will go fast to leave some space at the end for questions. And you see, I like this picture for discussion. Discussion is exactly the opposite. So you go from your results, and then internally you describe what you see in the tables and figures, and then you go to the more general impact, which is the relevance of your work, and so you go to more general concepts. I will go fast on this. References, okay, nowadays you have so many good softwares to do that, so I think young people, I can use these softwares. I can tell you that in the beginning of my career, these softwares, they were not available, so every time was really difficult to adapt the references. Again, if you wanted to change journal, it was very... So, of course, there are interactions, as I said, in the... I will go fast here. Submission, of course, you have to submit, to the right journal. Of course, do not, never submit a paper to 2 journals at the same time. This is not allowed. You have to wait for a reply. Some journals do not reply in time. You have to call them to say, okay, I want a reply, because it's not allowed to submit the paper to another journal before you receive the reply from the one you submit. Revisions, of course, you have to do it very well. Listen to, referees' comments, try to ask good questions, do not leave anything out because you risk the rejection of the paper. I will go fast, and of course, the peer review, this is the peer review system. I will skip, this very well. Ethical issues, of course, the responsibility of different authors, the ownership of data, the conflict of interest. I mean, if you work for a company that is actually selling a certain drug, of course, if you write a paper on that drug, you have a conflict of interest, so you have to be very careful and declare. Conflict of interest, they must be declared. If you declare the interest, it's okay. People will understand. But if you don't declare it, that's very, ethical research, should be concerning animals and humans. So I will go again fast here. Yeah, plagiarism. Of course, there are good softwares now also to check the plagiarism. Just be careful, because do not copy anything from other articles, because now most of the journals, they have this software, so they will identify the plagiarism, and it's very bad. They will write to you, look, the paper is not original. This is you feel very bad if you get an email like that. So don't do that. I mean, don't copy things from other articles. Again, I will go fast. And then before I conclude, I want to mention a topic that I know is discussed in India like in Italy. I mean, when we do all these kind of collaborations like the one we are doing now, the risk is that some people will leave our countries. But for me, this is not such a bad thing. I mean, if I have a student, a very good student, and then he or she will find a good PhD abroad, I mean, this is not something that for me is bad. It's good for the person. I will keep in touch with that person. He will become the antenna of my university somewhere else. So I feel that we can handle also this problem. I wanted to mention this ResearchGate profile. I think this is again is very useful. Somebody on the chat asked me if I use LinkedIn. I don't use LinkedIn. I don't use Facebook, but I use quite a lot ResearchGate. This is my ResearchGate profile. Feel free to follow me. We can keep in touch on the ResearchGate. Also, I wanted to mention this website for the soft skills. You can look on vitae.ac.uk to see if you are developing well your skills. I will not go through all the details, but you find on the website this kind of graphs or categories of different skills, and try to be a complete researcher. Try to develop all skills. In this figure, they are categorized in domains, subdomains, and descriptors. And I think this is a very good graph on this website. Do plans when you do plans for your career, plans for anything. Use this approach of SWOT analysis. Look at the strength of yourself, of your choice, of your project, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and threats. And then you will this analysis will help you to plan better. So to make strategic plans. So what I presented today is actually available online for free. This is a paper that I publish in open access, so you can download for free this document. I can also send the PDF to Professor Mathur and Professor Shetty, and again can be shared easily. This is a manual on scientific communication for postgraduate students and young researchers. I hope this can be useful for some of you. And also I wanted to say that, as I said, my research field is oxidative stress. I have actually 3 special issues open in this moment in good journals like Molecules. Impact factor is more than 3. The journal, International Journal of Molecular Sciences, impact factor is more than 4, and antioxidants. So if you have good papers in preparation in this field, please feel free to submit them. There are some publication fees because it's an open access approach, but also you can ask for a discount. They offer discount to young researchers, very often. So it's also, this is my Telegram, channel. Also, you can for free. You can actually subscribe to this channel and again receive information on my activities on oxidative stress. And I thank you very much for your attention. I hope that my presentation was useful. Thank you again for the invitation to Professor Mathur, to Professor Shetty. Thank you very much to the Vice Chancellor also to be present at this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sasso. It was a very enlightening experience, as well as probably, there are some crucial aspects of publications, what you have brought into picture, especially how, the introduction has to be written, how the, discussion has to happen. I think that's the highlight of your lecture, according to me. And have you come across any of the questions in the chat box you would like to answer, or shall we leave it, ask other participants to ask questions?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah.
For me, I'm open now to the discussion. I just have to leave a couple of minutes before 11.
No problem.
But I'm very open to all kind of questions that people would like to ask me. Yes.
Professor Mathur?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Luciano. We will be in touch with you actually when the questions come in, and you may reply, and then we will send these presentation as well as the PDF of your book, so that we can share with the participants. And it was a great lecture. It was a great presentation, and I hope that we would have much more than this interaction. This is only a beginning, but there would be so many other activities which will be together. And I think we could propose a vote of thanks, Dr. Shetty.
Yes, sir. Shall we take one or two questions, Dr.
Yeah, you can take directly. Yeah. One or two quick questions you can take.
Yeah, one or two questions can be posed by any of the people who are present here.
Or if somebody can speak also, they can speak quickly.
Yes.
Yes.
Anybody?
If there are no questions, or somebody has questions.
If there are no questions, I think we'll wind up the session, because Professor Sasso has to leave. And Professor Sasso, it was a very nice experience for me.
There is a question by Khan Humaira. He's asking, can we use free plagiarism tools, or do we have to pay? Actually, unfortunately, some of these plagiarism I mean, these are called actually anti-plagiarism. So the tools are against plagiarism, and they must be bought. They're not free, but I think it's very useful for a university to make a contract, and then it's not so expensive, so that, let's say, all professors will have access to these tools to avoid plagiarism in the papers, to avoid plagiarism in the also thesis. I think this is key, because again, some young people do not realize that it's important to avoid plagiarism. So I think it's a good investment. And also you have an advantage, that in India, of course, you write in English. In Italy, for instance, we write in Italian sometimes, and so the thesis of my students in Italian cannot be checked the same way as in English. So I think the anti-plagiarism softwares are actually better in English than in the other languages. So I think it's a good opportunity for
actually, we already have a policy in our university in place, anti-plagiarism, and we have a software, Turnitin, and all the paper theses go through plagiarism check. So that's a policy in our university.
Yeah. And then I see another question by Saumya Ranyan Satruzal, and she's asking, is the method of writing patents same as research papers? No, it's different. So when you write a patent, there are sections that you have to write, and you have to learn, and then there are experts about patents. I'm not an expert about patents myself, but there are, I'm sure you have an office for that at your university, and it's a good idea for a university to strengthen the patent office. The patent office, can make money for the university, and they also can distribute money to the researchers who have been active. So I think it's a good strategy for a university to improve patenting. And then again, the patents are different from papers, and you need to learn, some scientific concepts are the same, but the way, the kind of information you need to show that a patent is very original. For instance, if you want to patent something, you cannot make a poster to a conference, because if people will see the poster, they will say this is not completely new, so the patent is killed. So don't publish anything. Don't go to seminars if you want to patent something on a certain idea. You have to patent first, and then you can communicate. So I see some good comments. Thank you very much to everyone who is giving good comments. Of course, I like them. If there is another question, I can take another question. Otherwise,
hello. Yeah, hello. Yeah, good afternoon. Nice presentation. I'd like to know about the Mendeley software. Mendeley. Any opinion about
cannot
the
hear you
Mendeley software?
I cannot hear you so well. Can you repeat? I cannot hear you so well.
She's asking about the Mendeley software. Mendeley.
Yeah.
Mendeley. It's also, it's not bad. It's also good. Yes, it is true. But of course, yes, you have to. It's not free. You have to buy. For me, the ones I presented are actually quite good. And ResearchGate is free. So certain things that you can do with Mendeley is also can be done with ResearchGate. So basically, I prefer ResearchGate because it's completely free, and basically you can have a lot of nice contacts, etc. So for me, the ones I use a lot are ResearchGate, then I use Scopus, and then Access Medicine. I think, and then Sapienza has a lot of agreements with the publishers. So basically, if we have a Elsevier paper, Wiley, the Springer, these are, in Dow we have a lot of papers online because we have agreements.
Okay, thank you so much. Excellent.
Thank you very much, Professor Sasso, for the nice lecture, as well as taking your time to even answer some of those questions.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
I think I would like to thank you profusely for this help you have done to us, and also, as we have mentioned earlier, we would like to see you again here, in physical form. Right now, this is only on the net platform. And I would like to also propose formal vote of thanks to all the people who have helped us in this program, especially our Honorable Vice Chancellor for taking his time to come and give the introduction to the speech, and Professor Mathur for taking the whole initiative. In fact, his whole intention from the beginning, he has been telling we should do something for the younger generation who are sitting at home. We should keep them engaged. We should give them something valuable during the time of COVID crisis. And in fact, I think because of your efforts, really it has been quite useful for the young people, I'm pretty sure. And in fact, for arranging this, Professor Selvin, who is I think he must be somewhere around here in the attending, has helped us greatly in he's online now. He has helped us greatly in organizing the whole program, in coordinating the registration and so on and so forth. And this entire program actually has been physically coordinated by our computer center of our university, which has transformed itself into a very good interlocutor for us during the time of COVID, when we started suddenly conducting all the meetings online. They're helping us a lot in this. And I would like to also thank all the participants, patiently hearing and giving a good audience to this program. I would like to also mention to Professor Sasso that this program has been, around 200 people are on live mode, and remaining people are on the live stream mode. Therefore, on both the modes, people are watching this, and we have also recorded this. And if you have no objection for this, this will be made available for people.
Okay.
Sasso, can we use this link in the university website?
Sorry, I could not hear the last question.
Can we put this live on the university website for people to watch?
Yeah, of course. Already, I said on the chat that of course the presentation is free to share, and also again I will send you this document in. I can also find it probably on the. But I think it's easier if I send it to you, and then you can share it with all the participants. Unless let me just check if I can send the link immediately. Maybe it's easier for the people. On the.
Yes, sir. I'll just check whether is available to give you the last. We do have a minute. I will call him to just say hi, bye to you.
Yes. I actually have 2 minutes. But in the meantime, I can send also the link. This is free for everyone. This link you can just click and find the manual online.
We are closing in, sir. If you like to. Yes.
Thank you, Luciano, so much. It was very nice.
It was a pleasure. And again,
yes, sir.
I hope we will continue. I mean, if there is a group of people interested in oxidative stress, Tremendo, we can do another maybe presentation on oxidative stress. That could be also maybe interesting but that would be different because people only for people interested in the field. We can go deeper in what I'm doing in relationship to oxidative stress, and maybe we can start some scientific collaboration there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. We'll be keeping our contact alive.
Yes.
Vice Chancellor sir is back, sir. Is now. Sir, your final words.
Sir.
No, Professor Shetty said Vice Chancellor is back. Luciano, I had not gone anywhere.
Yes,
I was just signing some urgent papers simultaneously listening to your talk. So
yes.
it would have been bad on my part to keep my video on while you are speaking, I would have been signing these things, so it would be a little unfair. So I was listening to your talk, good talk. Let me tell you, this talk has been a wonderful one, and it is going to be an extremely useful one for our youngsters. I can see one of my colleagues, Joseph Selvin, listening to the whole thing very carefully. That itself speaks in volume that the kind of interest this lecture of yours which has generated. Wonderful. I am once again expressing my sincere gratitude to you for sparing your time here. And let me assure you, we means all, Professor Mathur, Professor Shetty, all my team members, this youngster Joseph, we all look forward to our closer collaboration in future.
Yes.
And to your visit, right?
Perfect. So thank you very much. I have to go now, but thank you for the invitation. Thank you to the Vice Chancellor. Thank you to Professor Mathur, Professor Shetty, and thank you to all for listening. Let's keep in touch. Bye-bye then. Have a good evening. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, Professor Shetty, see you then.
Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.